Hello everyone and welcome back to another Getting Stuff Painted, my bi-weekly update, give or take, on the miniatures I've been painting for the games we cover here on the channel, or will cover in the future at the very least. Second one of the new year, and got a bit of scenery to mix in, but are not enough for a standalone scenery thing, so I'm just including them here, and it has been what I'm painting. So from left to right we have some Marvel Crisis Protocol, both scenery and miniature. We have some scenery from Kill Team, we have some scenery from the He-Man game, Battlegrounds, we have some Space Marines, more Kill Team, and we have one miniature from Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, and then a spattering of miniatures from Fallout Wasteland Warfare. As usual, mostly painted with contrast, although not entirely, and I'll just chat about it as we go. So let's start with the Wrecking Crew. They're on a huge Abomination / Immortal Hulk sized base, but it is 4 miniatures, and you could paint them up individually before you kind of stick them on. I kind of didn't bother because they're spaced out fairly well, and they do have a hard time focusing, as it turns out, and two, a spattering of many colours. And one of them is a little bit odd because this guy over here, who's called Bulldozer, let's see if I can remember them all. It's Wrecker, Bulldozer, Pile Driver, and Thunderball. Yes, I remember him because Thunderball's a Bond movie. Anyway, they are the Wrecking Crew. They're very silly. They have their powers from a magic crowbar, essentially. And this guy, especially, as I was mentioning, Bulldozer, official paint job, it's orange. On the official card art, it's kind of a lightish orange with yellow. And in other art I've seen of him from playing Marvel Champions, his suit is yellow. Not the same yellow as this, it's more of a darker yellow. But I went with that just because I didn't want to use yellow paint again, so I opted to use Magmadroth Flame for his orange. And we have, we cracked out a really old contrast paint here, and I wish I hadn't because I forgot how bad it was. Warp Lightning for Wrecker's costume. Warp Lightning is not a good contrast paint. I've been saying it since the beginning of contrast paints. It's the worst green by far, but it matched the official colours most accurately, so I cracked it out, and I wish I hadn't. I don't know what I would have used instead. Honestly, if you're going to darken it down with a wash, Striking Scorpion might be fine. Over here I used the green I can never remember the name of, Gut Ripper Flesh I believe it is, and the yellow is Iron Jaws yellow. The purple is Luxin purple, by the way, and then at the back here this is just the base coat with non-oil and Soul Blight wash over the top. The red is Bal Red and the blue is Frostheart for Pile Driver. There's a view from the back. And it's just Basilicanum Grey for the base with Storm Vermin fur over the top after some non-oil put into the cracks. And that is Gryph-hound Orange there, and Leadbelcher Silver for everything that is silver. And I did use some non-oil in places, but not on everything because I didn't want them to be too darkened down. So I used Gryph-hound Orange to darken the muscles of the orange here. I used Biotang Green to do the same for the greens here, and that's essentially it. I like them now. I like them. I've seen more of them in Marvel Champions. Haven't tried them on the table yet for Crisis Protocol. I actually think it's a pretty neat way to do them because they're not really notable enough to have, 4 different characters. So having them all together and having a stat card that makes it seem like you are fighting them all simultaneously was a pretty good solution. I don't know why they're teamed up with Abomination, really, but whatever. So yeah, hopefully we'll see them on the table soon. Not necessarily with Abomination because I think he fits better into Hydra, and these guys don't care for Hydra really. They're just petty crooks. But we'll see them at some point. And just to round off the Crisis Protocol this time, along with the 2 lampposts I painted last time, I have painted up the 2 traffic lights, or crossing things, whatever. And I did these exactly the same way I did the ones from the original core box. So it is Iyanden Yellow and Basilicanum Grey, and then just the Bal Red, Gryph-hound Orange. No, Magmadroth Flame. Yeah, actually it was Gryph-hound Orange, yep, because it's... Actually, that's a good way to tell. If you're ever curious what's the difference between the 2 orange contrast paints, look at the colour of him, which was the newer one, Magmadroth Flame, and then look at the colour of the amber light there. So the old one, Gryph-hound Orange, which I'm going to use the crowbar to point at here, that's darker, and this is more vibrant. I'd say that is the difference between the 2 if you've ever been curious. And a little bit of non-oil over it as well, again, just to match up to what I painted however many years ago Crisis Protocol released. So next, let's get some scenery stuff out of the way. I have once again been painting up yet more terrain from the Kill Team Hivestorm box. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I've talked about it enough, including last time, using the War Hipster. I painted all the scenery in 6 hours video, whatever, linked it in the first video I talked about it. Using a slightly different method just because of the colours I have available. My dog is prepping to bark at another dog, so let's hurry up and just show these off. Exactly the same method, I have done nothing different, so this is just as a matter of note. Here is some more of the scenery done, and this is the last of the kind of like little gibbons. I think the only thing left that's on the small side is some ammo boxes, so I didn't do these in this bunch because they're not made of stone and they wouldn't fit doing this method. So I haven't done those just yet, but just some rubble and rebar clubs here. And I think it's meant to be a platform, but either way. And then this one right here with a little bit of a broken, whatever that is, a oil can, petrol can. And I'm still working up to doing the last 2 massive bits of terrain. So I'm just waiting for the right moment, as it were. Have you finished barking, dog? Can I carry on without doing a cut? She's sniffing the floor currently, so I think she's satisfied, maybe? No, she's looking around again. Well, these are 3 portals for the Masters of the Universe Battlegrounds He-Man game, as I said. These came with the Priestess and Teela that I painted 3 videos now? 2 videos now ago, not counting scenery ones. And these are part of the gameplay mechanics introduced with those characters who are able to generate force fields and create things that are actually line of sight blocking, fully blocking terrain. You have to go around them, etc. And I tried to match up the official paint jobs. I spray painted them first in the same way I've been doing all the terrain from that game, so using a couple of sprays I've talked about before. You start with Chaos Black and then you Zenith highlight with this turquoise, forgotten its official name, but it's a great effect on its own. Then I applied some Grey Seer to the portals because I wanted to apply a different colour. Not much, like I just kind of lightly did it, so that's why there's still some of the other colour coming through, because I thought that would be a nice blending method. In retrospect, the portals themselves aren't as bright as they should be compared to the official paint jobs, so that's because of the way I've done it. If you want to avoid that, I would say honestly go over it with Wraithbone, the other contrast paint, base paint, and you'd have a warmer colour for them. But I used a mixture of Ironjawz Yellow and Imperial Fist Yellow for this one, and Skeletal Horde for any and all skulls. I forgot to mention that for that terrain. This is a mixture of Frostheart and Talassar Blue, along with Draken Shade as well, and just Leadbelcher Silver for here. Actually, I think I like this one the most out of the 3. It also looks the most portal-like or force field-like. It's a neat effect, especially because it's kind of like pulling parts of the metal off. And then we just have a purple one. It's a mixture of Luxian Purple and I've cracked out Shyless Purple for the first time in forever, just to darken some certain parts while it was still wet, mixed it in, and it helped create a portal effect. I still would have preferred if the Luxian Purple was a little bit brighter. I think I used some Magus Purple here as well. It didn't really come through, unfortunately, but I did use it to greater effect in some models that we'll talk about in a second. Well, in a second, I mean a little bit longer than that, because first we're going to talk about some more Blood Ravens. I talked about these in depth when I had all of them painted up for a Kill Team that someday I'll use, I'm sure. I had some more spare and I wanted some backup alternative specialists is the word they use, right? Specialists to potentially swap in if I don't like, say, the Mind Layer or something, or someone else in the Kill Team just doesn't work how I personally want them to. So I painted up another Reaver, and I'll just show them off. I talked about the colours I used for them in the video where I had the whole Kill Team done, so go back and see that if you want, you know, specific details. But I use a certain spray paint, dry brush, a little bit of contrast for patch up work, and that's essentially it. Very simple. So this is an alternative Reaver if I just want to bring another bog standard Reaver. Then we have just another bog standard Intercessor, is it? Or is it Inceptor? I never remember. There's too many new types of Primaris Marine that have an I word in front of them. But either way, bog standard guy. This is just a bog standard guy if I want to have just a general all-rounder. That's him right there. I also like that he's in the classic Space Marine pose. It's a Primaris Marine in that classic Space Marine pose. Like if you had a normal Space Marine from way back when, he'd be like up to here, but in the exact same pose, which is why I kind of like that one. And then this would just be a normal bog standard Sergeant instead of having a Reaver Sergeant. Just again, just in case I ever wanted to try a different setup or a different roster. So he's for swapping in, and I had them sitting. I will eventually paint up some more Ultramarines, but since I had just recently done those Blood Ravens, I fancied having some more as options for that particular kill team. So as I say, you have to look back a few videos, just look for all the Blood Ravens in the thumbnail, and I'll go into more detail about how they're painted. I did the exact same method with these. I think that's it in terms of Blood Ravens to paint. I don't have plans to do any more. Kill team wise, my next goal is to get those Death Guard painted up from that new starter box they did, and then the Ultramarines from the same box as well. So I think in terms of kill team stuff, that's what I'm going to be focusing on going forwards. And also finishing off the Gala Pox Infected. I've still got to do 2 of the big guys from that, which are in progress, and then just the little optional stuff you can bring. A singular miniature from Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, and I painted this up pretty rushed because I realised I hadn't had it painted up and I needed it for the battle report I wanted to film, because I needed a Priestess of RK for the little narrative I'd created, and this is the miniature for it. That is with the Imperial Elite box, I think it is. It comes with like the Executioner from Solitude, General Tilius, Captain Reich, and someone else, I think. Also, I'm not just like pulling those names out from like 10 years ago. I've recently been replaying Skyrim, so they're fresh in my mind. Anyway, for this, I used Leadbelcher Silver to create the robe colour from the video game. This is Agros Dunes. I've been using Agros Dunes a lot. It is a really versatile contrast paint, and it's from the newer ones, so they did well with that one. For the glowing ball of energy, that's a mixture of Bar Queen Chill and Frostheart, with a little dry brushing of Oathwing Grey, which I don't really think came out that well in terms of like the dry brushing. I tried to do a little bit of lighting on the knee. I realised I wasn't really liking it, so I didn't bother trying. I didn't go heavy on it. And she's standing on some hay. Agros Dunes for the... Actually, maybe I used Skeletal Horde for the hay. I don't quite remember now. I think it's Agros Dunes because it looks very similar. So I think so, with Basilicanum Grey all around it and some non-oil over the top. And Modiphius resin. This is from 2019. It does the thing unless you spray paint them. So I had to spray paint. But if you do spray paint and you make sure that's nicely coated, you will avoid the problem. It didn't really happen with the Fallout miniatures I'm about to talk about to end on. So spray painting you really must, because if you just try and use a paint as a base coat and just try and apply that, you will get the thing TM that we've talked about over all these years I've been doing these videos, and it's just a frustrating thing that will put you off painting any of their resin. You really do have to spray paint them. And finally, to end on, I feel like I haven't been blathering this time as much as I usually do. We have an Assaultron that I just kind of put aside and then forgot it existed and didn't paint it when I painted all the other ones. So I did a little bit of something different with this one, because I did one in the military color. I've done a couple in the black that I also did for this, but I did one where it was like it's in the pose of it firing its death ray from its face, so I did a bit of weird lighting with it. For this one, I decided I almost made it look like a White Springs one from Fallout 76, which are kind of rusted white armor, just to be different. But I opted instead just to go with your classic Black Legion, dry brushing of Necron Compound before applying the black, some Leadbelcher Silver for the grippers and the whatever that is in our stomach, and then I dry brushed just very lightly some of the rust paint that Army Painter does, that I always sing the praises of, just to give it that kind of like, it's been hanging out in the wasteland, it's not doing so hot compared to the others. Again, just as a different visual flair to what I've done for the other Assaultrons I've painted in the past. So I probably could have went a bit heavier with the rust now that I see it in like really good light, but yeah, that's something I can always do in the future. Snakebite Leather and Basilicanum Grey with Aggressor Shade for the base. Now we have the two horrible monstrosities, aka, you'll recognise these if you've only played the Fallout video games. This is a centaur, which is like an amalgamation made by the master of, I don't know, humans and animal DNA, and just, I don't know, it's got squids coming out of his face. It's wonderfully horrific. You probably aren't as familiar with this version, and Modiphius did something pretty fun here. Rather than just put in two slightly different poses that look like that one, they decided to do a model based on the original concept art for the concept of centaurs, where they had a lot of faces, blue tongues, and a lot of hands, and it's really neat. This was an absolute pain to assemble, for the record, but a wonderful miniature when it's done, and it's very fun looking. And they were both pretty easy to paint. As I say, I spray painted them because it's Modiphius resin, so you have to if you don't want a headache. The tentacle tongue things here are Volupus pink. The tongues here are Talassar blue, I believe. And in terms of their skin tone, I hope it picks up. Like if I say, oh yeah, I use Guilliman flesh mostly, but if you might be able to notice there's more coloration than normal, I'm actually really happy with the effect, and I might use it for other skin tones in the future. I hope that it's coming across in the... It should be. There's a slight pinkishness to the flesh tone that Guilliman flesh usually doesn't get. Like if you compare, it's had a coating of Agrax Earthshade over it as well, which has obviously helped change it a little bit. But just in terms of skin tone, look at Piledriver's skin tone, which is Guilliman flesh. Look at his hands and his face there, and then compare it to the Guilliman flesh on this guy, and there should be an obvious difference, right? So what did I do? Well, before applying the Guilliman flesh, I used quite liberal amounts of Magus Purple, which is a really, really thin, pathetically weak kind of lilac purple. And it doesn't have much practical use as a contrast paint, but I think I've found one now where I applied it roughly where they have this kind of coloration in the official paint job. So around the head, down the back, on the top, and at the elbows of its many hands. Did the same for this one where I roughly thought it would have it similar. I used Skeletal Horde for the bone, again just to kind of match up the exposed bone, to match up to the official paint job. But in terms of the flesh tone, putting that Magus Purple in select places first, letting it dry so it's not blending, and then just going over it with Guilliman flesh just lets just enough. And in some places it looked a little too weak, so even after I put the Guilliman flesh on, I actually then went back and quite liberally applied more Magus Purple on top, let that dry, then did the Agrax Earthshade, and I think that did the job of helping blending it together. So I'm really happy with how that flesh tone turned out. If you wanted even more pink, I would say, or lilac-ish, I would say apply even more Magus Purple before Agrax Earthshade, which will help blend it all together. But I really like how those turned out. Very impressive, very scary miniatures, and just something different that I wanted to paint. And I wanted to do it in a way that wasn't just Guilliman flesh done. So hopefully it turned out okay. I feel like this one here isn't quite as good, but this is the classic one that everyone's familiar with from the video games. So this is the one I wanted to get right. And this was just kind of experimentation, so which is ironic, I guess, given the source. So yeah, I think they turned out pretty good. And that, as they say, is that for another Getting Stuff Painted. I hope this has inspired you to get through your pile of grey shame, and feel free to show me what you've been painting on Blue Sky, which is linked below, or on Discord. If you need a link to my Discord, just swing by when I'm streaming on Twitch. I do stream on YouTube as well, but only for my gaming channel, not the tabletop channel, because there's bad language and such that I don't want on this channel. So, but that's, just swing by and ask for the link and I'll give you it. Next time you will be seeing hopefully some of those Gellerpox. I need to work up to doing those giant Gellerpox miniatures. As I say, there's only 2 left. In terms of other stuff, I might do some more Battletech. I am hoping to do some more Warcry. I've been in the mood to do some Nurgle stuff, so there might be some of that. And maybe some more Blood Bowl. I still need to get those trolls done. Ogres done rather. So there might be some of that as well, but I'm keeping things vague as always because I like surprises. Hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you very much for doing so, and I shall see you in about 2 weeks for another update. Until then, ta-ta for now.